2 weeks ago, I ran a 10K race because I realized that I've spent the past 5 years of my life sitting on my ass and I need to start doing some exercise. So I got back into running. I'm not going to talk about that. Instead, I'm going to talk about all the technology that I used in the course of doing that. The main thing that you can actually see in that photo is my watch on a slightly janked custom race setting. So the watch that I've been using for the past nearly 6 years at this point, blimey, it's dead. It's a Garmin Forerunner 735 XT. It's a bit on the old side, but it's still chucking along perfectly fine. It's technically a triathlete watch, which means it can also log cycling and swimming. But I have used it for swimming exactly twice and cycling exactly 3 times, I think, and I'm not doing any triathlons anytime soon.
I don't like wearing my watch in water. It just feels weird.
It's surprisingly fine, and it means that I don't need to take it off when I go into the shower. I still do to wash the strap, otherwise it gets a bit grim, but it means that if I forget, I don't have to worry about having conked my watch.
Right, okay.
And it also means that I don't have to worry about sweat. So it has a few nice features. The battery life on it is a lot better than many other watches. Like, the battery life on this thing, when I first bought it, would easily do 2 weeks.
Yeah, same with my one.
Nowadays, it's degraded quite a bit, because I had it for a while. It can now do 1 week, which is still better than most other smartwatches you get, which could probably do a couple of days at most.
I was going to say, mine manages about 3 days now.
And obviously, it drains a lot faster in exercise mode, because what it effectively does is it logs a lot of stats every second. Some would say too many stats. So, off the top of my head, it logs my GPS location. It can use both GPS and the Russian GLONASS satellite network for better coverage. Newer watches can also use the EU's Galileo, and I think it's called...
Figaro.
Thank you. And I think it's wideband GPS for better coverage, particularly in dense urban areas where GPS might struggle with accuracy. It then uses that to calculate my speed, and that's my pace, normally measured in minutes per kilometer.
Yeah.
It also logs my heart rate based off of a little optical sensor that shines light onto my wrist and then looks at the very subtle changes in how much light is reflected back based off of the thickness of my veins, and uses that to approximate reasonably accurately my heart rate. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of others. It calculates my step rate, my cadence, based on how much it goes up and down. It also calculates a number called, I think, I can't remember what Garmin calls it, because I never actually look at it because it's kind of useless. But it tries to quantify my performance on a scale of, it tries to be minus 10 to 10, but normally what happens is when I start running, it goes up fairly high, and then up when it goes, you're doing well, or you're doing badly. And then by the end of the run, it's normally like minus 12.
Interesting.
So that's completely useless. And then it calculates various other stats. For instance, after a run, it calculates the training effect based off of what zones, I'm not going to get into the maths of it, but how long my heart rate spent in various percentages of my theoretical maximum heart rate, which you could therefore use as a function of, I guess. And then it came with it, but it's been lost in several house moves. It came with a heart rate monitoring chest strap, which uses electrodes for better accuracy rather than just light, but also could do even more stats in that it could measure vertical oscillation and calculate things like how much time I spend on each foot, or how much time in a typical step I spend with both my feet off the ground, and various other stats that I don't know why you'd want to use, but they're there.
I mean, it seems very over-engineered.
Some people like it.
I mean, fair.
See, there's sort of a big debate going on, has been ever since the introduction of these things in the running world, of should you be constantly looking at your watch during your run to see how you're doing, or should you just do it by feel? You want to strike a balance, because having a thing tell you how quickly you're going is useful, because sometimes I do just speed up without thinking about it. But it is very easy to just be staring at your watch for an entire run. So I had it during the race, partly to log how I was doing, and also partly to see where I was relative to my target time. Mm. But then beyond that, I tried to focus on the run. Speaking of which, not on the watch, you can't really see it because it's covering my hair, I am wearing a pair of bone conduction headphones. Now, normally when I'm on a run, I use my AirPods in transparency mode so that I can still hear the world around me, just in case something happens and I need to get out of Dodge, while still hearing music. But this race sensibly banned any form of headphones except open over-ear bone conduction headphones.
Yes.
And now I saw plenty of runners out there ignoring it and running with AirPods anyway, which is a little bit annoying, but hey-ho. So I got the cheapest pair of bone conduction headphones I could get on Amazon.
Yes.
What's a bone conduction headphone?
Essentially, they're headphones that, rather than going into your ear canal, sit on top of the bones that transmit the sound. And it's slightly overstated. I think bone conduction is technically what it's doing, but on a technicality. So it's a very small speaker vibrating, ostensibly, the bones that your eardrum is connected to, so that you can hear the music coming from the headphones while also still having your ears completely open to the world around you. So I spent, I think it was like £21 on them. The sound quality was exactly what you'd expect from a pair of £21 wireless bone conduction headphones.
Yes.
Patat.
But they worked.
Yes, though the bigger problem wasn't the sound quality, but the volume. Because particularly in a noisy environment like the streets of Cambridge during a race, it's loud and the headphones are having to fight it. So I had to crank it to the maximum setting and then some.
Crikey.
To hear it. And speaking of which, in terms of music, because I found that that music really helps me stay on pace in a run. Your mileage may vary, but and the thing about it is that when I'm running, I listen to music at a much higher BPM than you'd normally find. So like typical pop songs are normally like 90 to 120-ish BPM, right? What I was listening to during this race is a custom mix that I put together in Ableton Live that was at anywhere between 175 and 180 BPM. Because that was the rate that I was doing of steps.
Oh, right, I see.
Oh, so you were stepping to the beat.
Yes, exactly.
Quite handy, that.
Yeah. Spotify used to have a feature where it would like actually measure your step rate and choose tracks that are at that BPM, and they even had a set of original tracks that had been produced by various producers at various BPMs. Like they re-exported the track and actually changed some of the musical elements to fit various BPMs.
Oh.
Then they retired it, which makes me sad.
I didn't know about that.
Luckily, somebody managed to, because like all the tracks are still on Spotify, you just can't get to them through the normal menus, so somebody found them and made playlists of them.
Ah, right, okay.
And then the final thing that I'm going to talk about in terms of sports tech, because I know this segment has gone on for far too long, is training plans. Because particularly when you've got a race in mind, it is helpful having one. So the Garmin ecosystem has its own training plan system. It's a bit naff. But what I used is an app called Cooper, spelled Coopah. This is not endorsed, though I will happily take the sponsorship money.
Me.
Thank you. And what it does is that you put in what event you're doing, so the length, what your target time is, and what your current fitness is, and it'll generate a training plan adapted to getting you from where you are to where you want to be.
What if you don't know where you are?
You find out.
How?
By doing a run.
Oh, okay.
So, like, what you would do is you would just do a 5-kilometer run as quickly as you can, put in your time,
Oh, okay.
and then it would work out what your current level of fitness is from that, and then adjust your workout times based on how it like speeds up from where you are to where you want to be, and it gives you various different types of runs. So, like, easy runs, long runs, some more specialized ones like interval runs at various different paces to get the fitness there. And they've also got a feature where you can chat with a coach, like if you need to adjust the plan and you're not sure about something.
Right.
It's quite useful. I can't remember how much it costs because it is a subscription service, but it's at the point where I consider it worthwhile for not being on my ass for years on end.
Yeah.
And also, like, it motivates me to actually go for a run.
Well, that's true, yeah.
I'll close the segment off with the fact that that because I hate myself, I've also signed up for the Cambridge Half Marathon in March.
So you're doing
Why
the
are
whole
you doing this
rigmarole
to
again.
yourself?
Yeah, I have done a half marathon before, but it was in 2019. And then I spent 5 years sitting on my ass.
How long's a half marathon?
21.0975 kilometers.
But did you win the race?
No.
You see, I was looking at this, right? Because obviously you're 4,339, and the person behind you is 5,000.
The numbers don't... There's very little, if any, meaning to them.
Oh, I was going to say, is this like a perspective trick? Because how else did they fit 500 people in between the two of you?
No, it is just a number allocated to each runner.
Oh, that's
I
not
think,
position.
Like some of the lower numbers are generally allocated to the elite runners, but then the rest of the pool is effectively.
So you're not an
random.
elite runner.
No, God no. Like
No.
there's people who did the 10K in like about half an hour, if not less. My final time was 1 hour, 3 minutes, some number of seconds, which is still a respectable time.